Nikola Jokic and Dort got into the most explosive on-court clash of the entire season. But what you saw on the court, that was only the beginning. Because what happened next is exactly what the NBA is trying to erase from the internet. Sources who were inside the arena that night say the tension didn't cool off. It followed them straight down the tunnel. And that's where things allegedly spiraled completely out of control. We're talking about Jokic's brothers stepping in and getting into a fight with Dort and SGA in the tunnel. Today, I'm breaking down everything. The fight, the players involved, and the real reason the NBA stepped in fast to contain the story. Trust me, you don't want to miss what might be the biggest off-court revelation of the season. If you were watching the game on February 27, 2026, you probably all went into the air at Paycom Center. It was obvious this wasn't basketball. This was a crime scene in the making. You have to understand the history here, because the tension didn't just fall from the sky. This was the second time these two teams really linked up since the Thunder bounced Denver in that 7-game series last year. That series was officially these February games have a bit of flow, but this one was just violent and weirdly personal. Within the first Golden Boys completely lost his mind. He was just returning from a 9-game absence due to an abdominal strain. And maybe that time off had his blood boiling because after And here is where it gets dark. Everyone in that arena, especially the Thunder coaching staff, knew Jokic was a walking target because he was literally just recovering from a devastating injury on his left knee. He had missed games due to the injury. And the rumors coming out of the Nuggets camp were that he was playing through significant pain. To put this into perspective, independent medical analysts were looking at the tape and saying he was moving at maybe 85% mobility at best. So if you're Dort and your entire job description is to be a human wrecking ball, you see that weakness and you smell blood. So as
physical contact, but to say unnecessary and excessive, that's an automatic ejection.
What happened next is what changed everything. Normally, Nikola is the guy who looks at the ref, palms his hands out, and complains about the call. He's a guy of logic and rare technical fouls. He avoids theatrics like the plague. But the second he felt that knee pop, something sports event to a riot. Eventually, the officials reviewed the play and hit Dort with a flagrant 2, tossing him from the game. But the DC one, nobody was looking at the points. Everyone was looking at Jokic, who walked off the court without saying a word to a single person, ignoring the medical staff and heading straight for the locker room. But here is the part the cameras missed. While the fans were filing out of the Paycom Center and the Thunder were celebrating in their locker room, a very different kind of meeting was being organized in this tunnel. You see, when you pull a stunt like that on a man from Sombor, you aren't just dealing with a basketball player. You're dealing with a bloodline. And while the NBA thought the drama ended with a flagrant 2 and an early shower for Dort, the real nightmare was just beginning in the one place where the cameras can't protect you. So, while the Thunder were probably in their locker room high-fiving and thinking they just pulled off a gutsy win, the Jokic brothers, Nikola along with his older brothers, were allegedly already moving with a level of purpose that should have set off every alarm in the Paycom Center. You have to understand the layout of the arena to realize how badly the NBA's security detail fumbled this. The tunnel at Paycom is a narrow Hydra concrete corridor that connects the court directly to the locker room areas. It's a bottleneck. And on February 27th, it became a trap. As Dort and SGA were walking out, they rounded the corner and walked straight into a wall of Serbian muscle. We're talking about Nikola and his brother C standing exactly 15 feet from the Thunder's locker room door. The visual alone was insane. You have the Jokic brothers who honestly look like they stepped out of an underground fight club in grade, literally loitering in a restricted zone. Witnesses say the tension was so thick you could taste it, and when Dort and SGA got within striking distance, the scuffle from the fourth quarter officially turned into a street fight. Before the security detail could even process what was happening, the brothers were already in the faces of the Thunder stars. In fact, according to reports, a few punches actually landed. The most embarrassing part was that the security guards didn't even try to put their hands on the Jokic brothers. Imagine being an elite security guard and your job is to stop 600 pounds of angry Serbian men who have a documented history of not caring about consequences. One witness claimed the guards looked terrified. They were basically appealing to the brothers' logic like please brah, which is brother in Serbian. Let's keep it professional while Strahinda was reportedly screaming in Serbian and looking like he was ready to dismantle the entire roster. At this point, Shai, who is usually the go-to guy in the room, found himself in a situation where his NBA status meant absolutely nothing. He and Dort were stuck in a concrete tube with two men who didn't care about anything. In the end, the Thunder Stars actually had to retreat and wait for backup, which is wild when you realize they were only a few yards from their own locker room. But here is where the internet really lost its mind. While the Jokic brothers are out here teaching Shai and Dort a lesson, fans started looking back at the fight on court. And one guy caught their attention. Yeah, Jared McCain. And look, I'm not saying the kid can't hoop, but when it comes to a brawl against the Jokic brothers, you better hope that's not who you have as backup. You had these two massive Serbians who look like they chew metal for breakfast on one side, and on the other side, you have the Thunder's backup, Mr. Rainbow Fingers over here. While the brothers were ready to catch a felony, McCain was probably just trying not to chip his purple nail polish. The contrast was so absurd that it turned a terrifying situation into a global meme. SGA and Dort eventually managed to slip away into the locker room. They got lucky, because if it wasn't for the sheer volume of personnel finally flooding the tunnel, that night would have ended with someone in a hospital bed. But the craziest part isn't even the fight itself. It's the fact that the league's most respected voices actually stepped up to talk about it. While the internet was busy laughing at McCain's nails, the NBA's old guard was about to drop a truth bomb that made everyone realize why Jokic had finally reached his breaking point. The NBA usually tries to scrub these moments with some not representative of our values PR statement. But on February 28, 2026, the Inside the NBA crew wasn't following the script. Charles Barkley was the first one to pull the pin on the grenade. See, older NBA fans who watch Chuck in his prime know that he usually likes a good touch-up, but here's what he had to say.
That's the only problem. Like, I believe in touching guys up. I think what Joker's sensitive is, man, once you get hurt.
According to Chuck, when you've spent 16 games on a training table wondering if your career is over, you don't see a foul as just a foul anymore. You see it as a threat to your livelihood. This justifies why Jokic had that psycho look. He wasn't just mad about a trip. He was reacting to the fact that someone was actively trying to put him back in a hospital bed. Chuck basically gave Jokic a hall pass for the tunnel fight, saying that once you cross that line of dirty, all bets are off. Then you have Shaq, who somehow managed to take the most controversial middle ground in TV history. The Big Diesel actually called the flagrant to soft, which is the most Shaq thing ever. He described Dort's hip check as a medium check, basically telling the world that back in his day it wasn't such a big deal. But even Shaq couldn't deny Jokic's aggression was necessary.
Boy, smart enough not to throw punches, but just to give him that intense look to, let him know that I'm not playing. He was not a game that, the game is not physical where you just let people run by.
But the real smoke came from the Nuggets coach, David Adelman. He called it malicious and ridiculous. Adelman brought up a point that has been a massive conspiracy theory among Nuggets fans for years, the big man disadvantage. Because Jokic is 7 foot and 280 pounds, the refs basically treat him like a heavy bag. Adelman's point was that the league allows defenders to maul him simply because he's big enough to take it.
I think he was reacting to what was being done to him, and his reaction's not going to be to cower away. He's competitive.
But here's the thing. Adelman isn't just being a protective coach. He was talking about something that the rest of the NBA is just starting to realize. See, this incident with Jokic isn't an isolated event. So, I started investigating, and you wouldn't believe what I found on what Dort did to Wembanyama and Tyrese Halliburton. Because once you see the pattern, you'll realize why Dort needed to get checked by the Jokic brothers. First things first, we need to stop calling Lou Dort a physical defender. That's a PR term cooked up to make dirty basketball sound like a grit and grind highlight reel. Let's call it what it actually is. Lou Dort is a serial star hunter. Let's start with what went down on Christmas Day 2025. That game was supposed to be the jewel of the NBA schedule. A showdown between the Thunder and the Spurs. The league was using it to sell the future, but the future almost got canceled in the first half. Victor Wembanyama was finally back on the floor after nursing a left calf strain. And you won't believe what happened next. Late in the second quarter, A shot went up, and instead of a standard box out, Dort decided not to jump for the ball, but lunge his entire 220 pounds frame directly into Webm's left knee, sweeping his legs out from under him like he was trying to chop down a tree. We hit the floor, clutching his leg. And for a second, the entire arena got scared. And so analysts began to point out the one detail everyone missed. Dort wasn't even looking at the rim. He was looking at the knee, which means he was actively targeting the knee. But if you think the Wemby situation was bad, wait until you hear what happened in the finals. In the 2025 NBA Finals, the Thunder got their ring, but that victory was overshadowed by what looked like a coordinated assault. Throughout that 7-game series, Dort was basically a one-man demolition crew. He spent 2 weeks bulldozing Pascal Siakam and hitting Tyrese Haliburton. But what nobody expected was how Haliburton was repeatedly struck in the face and body by Dort in Game 7. Do you see the pattern now? This is why the rest of the league is starting to look at Dort in a different way. It's one thing to play hard, it's another to build a career on wrecking other people's bodies while at it. But where it got a little bit funny was when Twitter turned the Jokic brothers into Dort's nightmare. One viral post on X shows a photo of Strahinja Jokic with a caption, "Dort's next food delivery just arrived." Another meme featured the brothers standing in a dark alleyway with a text, "When SGA sees his DoorDash driver is a 68 in Serbian named Nemanja." Look, if you want to understand why Nikola Jokic is probably the only player in the league that doesn't need to hire private security, you have to look at Strahinja and Nana Jokic. To anyone else, the Paycom tunnel on February 27th was a workplace hazard. To the Jokic brothers, it was a family reunion in a concrete hallway. And if you think their protection is just for show, you haven't been paying attention to them over the last 5 years. You see, the Jokic brothers aren't just angry siblings. They were raised in a literal war zone in Sombor, Serbia, where the only law that matters is you touch one, you touch all. And they've proven time and time again that they don't care about NBA fines, arena bans, or even the law. Just look at April 2024 during Game 2 of the Nuggets-Lakers series. The cameras caught Strahinja climbing over seats like a mountain lion to deliver a direct right-hand punch to a fan's face after the fan said something nasty about Jokic. Strahinja beat him so much that the dude ended up with a concussion, a deviated septum, and a lawsuit where he literally said he was afraid to leave his home for fear of retaliation. In October last year, Strahinja pleaded guilty to trespassing and disorderly conduct and was sentenced to a year of probation.
Think about that.
He was on probation when he showed up at Paycom Center 4 days ago. He's literally gambling with his freedom just to make sure nobody breathes on Nikola the wrong way. And then there's the Morris twins war from 2021. You remember when Nikola shoved Marcus Morris in retaliation for a dirty foul, causing Morris to miss 58 games with whiplash, and then Marcus Morris threatened Nikola on Twitter? Well, most brothers would stay out of the Twitter beef, not these guys. Strahinja and Nemanja created a joint account specifically to send a warning to Marcus Morris. If you want to make a step further, be sure we will be waiting for you. They didn't just tweet though. They actually bought tickets for a game in Miami and sat directly behind the bench as a show of force. You won't believe the level of craziness they displayed in Phoenix back in June 2021. Either after Nikola got ejected for a hard foul on Cameron Payne, Devin Booker tried to get in his face. But a clip from the stands showed the brothers screaming and being restrained by multiple security guards. They weren't just shouting. They were reportedly trying to hop onto the court to defend Nikola from the entire Suns roster. But here is where the story turns dark. In 2019, Strahinja was arrested for allegedly choking and pushing a woman in a Denver apartment to prevent her from leaving, telling her he would choke her until she fell asleep. He eventually pleaded guilty to felony trespassing. See, when people say the Jokic brothers are about that life, they aren't exaggerating for the clicks. Because while Strahinja is the fire, Nemanja is the weapon. Unlike most tough guys who just posture for the cameras, Nemanja is a professionally trained MMA and Muay Thai fighter. He has a pro record and knows exactly how to dismantle a human being in seconds. The contrast in that tunnel was almost comical. On one side, you have the Balkan mob, men who grew up in the shadows of the Yugoslav wars and have the rap sheets to prove they don't value an NBA career over family loyalty. And on the other side, you have the Thunder's backup, Jared McCain, who the internet has officially dubbed Mr. Rainbow Fingers. A lot of fans are saying that what we saw at Paycom's, only this time, the enforcers aren't wearing jerseys. They're sitting courtside with Serbian passports. The reality is that David Edelman's frustration isn't just coach talk. It's a direct indictment of a league that allows its MVP to be treated like a heavy bag just because he's big enough to take it. Jokic isn't the villain here. He's a man who has been pushed to the edge of his patience, and now Adam Silver is staring down a PR nightmare that he's terrified to touch. You think the NBA is going to hand out a massive ban to the Jokic brothers? Think again. Silver knows that picking a fight with the family of a global icon is a losing battle that could turn into an international incident. But here's some advice for you. Mark your calendars for March 10th because the Nuggets are heading back for a game with the Thunder. And with the Jokic brothers officially on notice, the atmosphere is going to be radioactive. The NBA is already doubling security. But as we've seen, concrete walls and yellow jackets don't stop these guys. So, I have to ask you, who's really in the wrong? Is Lou Dort a dirty player who finally found the one man he couldn't bully? Or has the Jokic family officially lost control?